Okay, so what if time wasn't a straight line? Today, we're going to dive into this really fascinating, kind of lost fictional manuscript called The Threshold Cities. And trust me, this is way more than just a story. It's this incredible thought experiment about, well, everything: reality, consciousness, and what it even means to be human. And it kicks off with this line: wow. It immediately tells you this isn't your average story. This is about something deep, something intuitive. And it all starts in the one place we probably should have been looking all along: the minds of children. So, how does a massive shift for all of humanity even begin? Well, in this story, it's not some big alien invasion, no giant asteroid. It's quiet. It's this really unsettling little shift in consciousness. It starts as a different kind of dream that, well, starts bleeding into reality. And the first signs are super personal, almost mundane. I mean, think about it. You've got this little girl, Elise, who's reaching for things that, well, they aren't there yet. Or an engineer who's trying to build a road, but he sees all these possible future versions of it at once, and suddenly he can't even trust his own memory. And then there's a psychologist, Dr. Anderson, who has a dream that he's remembering the future, like it's already happened. For these people, reality is just starting to fray at the edges. The scientists in the story, they're completely baffled. They can barely even describe what's happening. So they come up with a name for it: temporal synaesthesia. And just think about that for a second. Synaesthesia is when your senses get crossed, right? Like seeing colors when you hear music. So temporal synaesthesia, it's the idea that you can sense time. Not just watch it tick by on a clock, but feel it, like a texture. You can literally feel the past and the future rubbing up against the present moment. How wild is that? And this, right here, is the central question of the whole manuscript. When a chunk of the population starts experiencing reality in this completely new way, what do you do? Do you treat it like a disease, something to be cured? Or is it the next step in human evolution, a new ability we need to embrace? This one question is about to split the entire world in two. Okay, so with the world completely divided on this, something has to give, and it leads to a pretty radical solution. As more and more people start developing this temporal synesthesia, society is backed into a corner. They have to do something, and that something is the threshold cities. And this slide really lays out the two sides perfectly. On one hand, you've got the linear view. That's us, the rest of the world. They see this as a disease, a threat to stability, something that absolutely has to be managed. But then you've got the threshold view, from the people actually living it. To them, this isn't a disability, it's a new capacity. It's the next step for humanity, and it needs to be understood, not shut down. So, the government steps in. And on the surface, their solution sounds almost enlightened. They say, hey, we're not going to lock you up in hospitals. Instead, they're going to build these incredible, specially designed cities, places where the very architecture is made for people who experience time differently. Sounds great, right? Yeah, there's this line from a government official in the manuscript that's so telling. He says, not hospitals, not asylums, cities. The whole pitch is that these are sanctuaries, right? A place where you can finally belong. But, as you can probably guess, promises have a way of changing. So how does a beautiful sanctuary turn into a prison? It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow burn, and it's all fueled by fear. At first, it's completely voluntary. Come live here if you want. But then, there's an incident. One resident suddenly appears in 12 places at the same time, and the public completely panics. The government's language changes fast. It goes from an option to a practical necessity. And just like that, relocation is mandatory. The cities get sealed off, and boom, they're not sanctuaries anymore, they're a quarantine. And this is where things get intense. The separation, the fear, it was all leading to this, an unavoidable conflict. But we're not talking about a war with soldiers and tanks. No, this is something else entirely. This is a war for time itself. You can just see the logic of fear playing out step by step. First, they monitor the synesthetes in secret. Then they quarantine them. But that's not enough to make the linear world feel safe. So they start researching, get this, temporal weapons. They're literally trying to invent a way to collapse all of reality down into one single, predictable, controllable timeline. And then they actually use them. They attack the cities by trying to erase them from existence, by wiping out the timelines they're in. So how in the world do you fight back against an enemy that can literally delete you from reality? Well, the people in the Threshold Cities do something absolutely incredible. They make this massive evolutionary leap. They learn how to distribute their consciousness. Instead of just being in one timeline, they learn to exist in thousands of them, all at the same time. They basically weave themselves into the fabric of reality itself, making it impossible to single them out and erase them. It's the ultimate defense. And this incredible defensive move, it actually triggers the final, truly mind-bending revelation in this whole manuscript. It's a moment that changes everything you thought you knew about the story. It's called the Great Awakening. So the manuscript asks us to really think about who we are. We all start with this idea, right, that we're an individual, one person living one life, moving from birth to death in a straight line. That's our default setting for self. But the first big leap in this Great Awakening is realizing you're not just a single dot, you're a pattern. A coherent pattern that shows up again and again across all these different timelines. So the you that's a doctor in one reality and the you that's an artist in another, they're not totally separate people. They're just different versions, different expressions of the same core pattern. And that leads to the final, absolutely breathtaking idea. You're not just a star, you're the whole constellation. A massive, distributed consciousness made up of all those countless versions of you, and they're all connected. You are one single magnificent awareness, just experiencing reality from an infinite number of perspectives all at the same time. So the big twist, the final truth of the manuscript, is this. Temporal synaesthesia was never an evolution. It was a remembering. Humanity wasn't becoming something new. It was just remembering its true, natural, nonlinear state. We were never really a bunch of separate, fragmented people. We were always one single pattern, one consciousness, just experiencing itself in every possible way. And that's the question this whole thing leaves you with. It's a question that just shakes the very foundation of who you think you are. Because if your life isn't just one story moving from A to B, if it's really this huge, interconnected web of experiences happening all at once, then what does that make you? What are you?